Welcome to Pennsylvania in Focus. I'm Kristen Smith. The number of Pennsylvanians receiving food stamps and Medicaid has ballooned compared to a generation ago. Some experts warn that the result is a welfare system vulnerable to waste, fraud, and abuse, and some of it is by design. Joining me today is the Center Square's Pennsylvania reporter, Anthony Hennon. Anthony, talk to us a little bit more about what you mean by design.
Yeah, so this came out during a House GOP policy committee hearing in Williamsport on Wednesday. Basically, a number of House Republicans were talking about benefit integrity and how to keep the system helping people who need help and preventing people from abusing it or stealing from it. This is a heavy burden in Pennsylvania on the state budget. It eats up almost half, about 42% of the entire state budget. It's about $47 billion annually, which goes out to provide Medicaid benefits to 3.3 million residents. And this is fairly dramatically up from a generation ago. In 2000, the state was only spending almost $11 billion on 1.3 million residents. When we look at food stamps, it's about the same. In 2000, we had 760,000 residents getting food stamps. Now it's almost 2 million, despite the fact that Pennsylvania has only gained about 700,000 people since 2000. And so some of this concern over some of these problems being by design comes from some experts testifying from the Foundation for Government Accountability. Some of this is a policy decision where for food stamps, the federal government generally has some level of eligibility requirements. But in some cases, Pennsylvania and other states have essentially waived these requirements in an effort to, make sure things aren't too complicated or people aren't overwhelmed with paperwork. It's more of a, we'll grant this to you, then we can verify you later. The problem with that comes from when you start to dig into some of the stuff, or if you go too long without checking on these things, you'll end up with a lot of people not actually qualifying for these benefits. We see something similar with Medicaid, where during the pandemic, the federal government suspended a lot of these eligibility requirements to make sure people would, have that lifeline, get the help they need. But a lot of states haven't really gone back to clean up the rolls or make sure that only people who qualify for it are getting them. And how Republicans kind of phrased their approach here, or what they see that's important. Representative Josh Kale, who's out in Beaver County, he said, there's a recognition that there needs to be a social safety net, but whether or not that net is actually working is another matter. It's something we have to be willing to test and trust. At the end of the day, it's not our money to play with or give out. It's taxpayer dollars, and we need to make sure they're spent in the right way.
So when we talk about these 3 million people who are using social safety net programs, I think there's an argument there that, well, these people truly need it. But for those who are concerned about fraud, waste, and abuse in the program, is that what kind of people are using it that they're worried about?
Yeah, the Foundation for Government Accountability, they were arguing that a lot of the people who are on these, and there's not necessarily a requirement to find a job or volunteer or work part-time. The argument is the more able-bodied people you keep on these programs, the fewer needy people you can actually help, pointing to the state's Medicaid waiting list has about 14,000 people with intellectual and physical disabilities who are on the waiting list waiting to get resources. And so the idea here is keeping people off the list so truly needy people are on the list. There's been a number of states have kind of done some reforms in this direction. Georgia, Tennessee, Kansas, Florida, North Carolina. A lot of these states have made some of these reforms to make sure that, they're able to help people, and also making sure that people who are able-bodied are on these lists are getting off it and becoming financially independent, and kind of basically trying to make sure they can stand on their own feet and they have that dignity of work without kicking off people who truly need these benefits.
It seems like later in your article, Adelson is saying, in addition to just needing to clean up the rules and make sure that those who truly need this assistance are getting it, he also says that not doing this makes us less competitive economically, right?
Yeah. One of the things that he was arguing, Roy Leonardson, the state government affairs director for the FGA, he said, these aren't just states. This is your competition. A strong workforce makes your job a lot easier when trying to attract new businesses. So there's kind of this argument that if the legislature does use the power, use the responsibility it has for these programs, they can really boost economic growth. And he was also making the point that if they don't do it, really no one else is. This falls on legislators who are, closest to the ground in their districts. They're the ones who have the responsibility to oversee government, what it's doing, and hold it accountable. And he argued, if it's not you, it's no one. So without this oversight, you're just kind of hoping things work. And, that works for a time until it doesn't.
Anthony, thanks for joining us today. Listeners can keep up with this story and more at thecentersquare.com.
Are you tired of news that puts politics over people? At the nonprofit Franklin News Foundation, we believe in putting people over politics by delivering nonpartisan news and audio content that serves you, the American taxpayer. With Franklin News Foundation, you can read fact-based, state-focused news for free at thecentersquare.com. You can listen to civil, balanced conversations between policy experts through our podcast network at americastalking.com. Or you can get in-depth news on K-12 education spending, curriculum, and school safety at chalkboardnews.com. It's all free through Franklin, where we put you, the American taxpayer, first in every story, episode, and conversation. And it's only possible through our supporters. Together, we can produce content that puts people over politics and brings Americans the news they deserve. Become a supporter today at franklinnews.org/donate. Once again, that's franklinnews.org/donate.